When we think about how climate change might affect us in the future, we often think about physical impacts, but there are potential mental health impacts too. And there's remarkable consistency across surveys of young people about how much concern they feel about climate change. About 4 out of 5 report feeling concern. In a survey we carried out of 11 to 14-year-olds in England very recently, 87% said they're experiencing concern or feel concern about climate change. Now, this can be a good thing, right? It can lead to action, which is what we need. But it can also lead to some pretty big emotions. Young people are telling us that they're experiencing anxiety and sadness, feelings of helplessness and anger and betrayal, that they're being left to deal with problems that are not of their making. And these emotions sometimes are diagnosed as climate anxiety or eco-anxiety, neither of which are recognised mental health disorders, because they're in many ways a very rational response to the issues that we're facing. But these can have quite a big impact on our lives. The other end of the spectrum is growing evidence of increased climate scepticism or climate denial amongst young people. And in many ways, climate denial or climate scepticism is an emotional response too. It's easier to reject the problem, deny the problem, than it is to actually engage with it, because it's a frightening issue. So our response to climate denial may not be entirely different to our response to climate anxiety, and there are big implications for the way we talk about climate change with young people.
If both rising climate anxiety and climate skepticism are the consequence of climate change getting worse, then what can we do about it in terms of how we talk about climate change? The answer to that may be a bit counterintuitive. It is to stop talking about climate change as a problem and to start talking about the things we are doing to tackle the problem. So tell stories of doing, tell stories of action, rather than stories to generate concern. For example, if there are countries that have found certain ways to bring policies into place that make a difference on how quickly they are tackling climate change in terms of lowering emissions, then those stories of how those countries have done that can serve as an inspiration to other countries to do the same. An example here is renewable energy policies that were put in place in Germany in the early 2000s that made solar energy far more cheaper 20 years down the line than it would have been without those policies.
It's pretty clear that just learning about the facts and figures of climate change isn't in itself necessarily going to drive action. But it is possible to find relevant stories about action, about what we can do in all subject areas. And it's incumbent on teachers at whatever level to make sure students have access to these stories as a way of thinking differently about the future in whatever subject. And our work would suggest that every subject has a story to tell.